The fluorescent lights of Mercy Hospital's emergency department buzzed overhead as I rushed toward room 12, responding to an urgent page. The monitors were screaming when I arrived. Mrs. Eleanor Williams, a sweet 78-year-old with a complicated medical history, was crashing before our eyes. BP's dropping, doctor. Oxygen saturation at 82% and falling, reported Nurse Garcia, her experienced hands already adjusting IV medications. I quickly assessed the situation. Mrs. Williams had been admitted 3 hours earlier with pneumonia, but something wasn't adding up. Her deterioration was too rapid, her response to standard protocols too poor. These aren't typical pneumonia symptoms, I muttered, scanning her chart. Has anyone checked for pulmonary embolism? Nurse Garcia shook her head. Dr. Blackwell already diagnosed community-acquired pneumonia. He started the standard protocol from the new treatment algorithms. The new treatment algorithms had been implemented 2 months ago by our recently appointed medical director, Dr. Victoria Reynolds. They were rigid, cookie-cutter approaches that prioritized cost efficiency over individualized care. Following them had become mandatory, questioning them, career suicide. But looking at Mrs. Williams's mottled skin and distended neck veins, I knew we didn't have time for bureaucracy. I need a CT angiogram stat and get me 100 milligrams of alteplase ready. Dr. Chen, Nurse Garcia lowered her voice, that's not the pneumonia protocol. And Dr. Reynolds specifically said, I know what she said, I interrupted, already moving toward the phone. But this patient has a massive pulmonary embolism until proven otherwise. I'm not watching her die because of a protocol. 20 minutes later, the CT confirmed my suspicion. Multiple large clots obstructing blood flow to Mrs. Williams's lungs. Had we continued treating her for pneumonia, she would have died within hours. After administering the appropriate medications and stabilizing Mrs. Williams, I updated her chart with detailed notes justifying my deviation from protocol. 6 years as Mercy Hospital's top emergency physician had taught me to document everything, especially when breaking rules to save lives. What I didn't document was the gratitude in Mrs. Williams' eyes when she regained consciousness, or her whispered, "You listen to me, doctor." Nobody else did. I didn't write down how she squeezed my hand or mentioned that her son would want to thank me personally. In the moment, these seemed like the ordinary sentiments of a grateful patient. I was finishing my shift when my pager beeped. Report to medical director immediately. Dr. Victoria Reynolds' office occupied the prime corner of the administrative wing, a space previously used as a staff lounge until she claimed it upon her appointment 8 months ago. The walls now displayed her impressive collection of credentials from prestigious institutions, strategically arranged to be visible from every angle. Dr. Chen, she said without looking up from her computer. Close the door. At 47, Reynolds was a striking figure, meticulously styled silver-streaked hair, designer glasses, and the perfect posture of someone who'd never doubted her own authority. She'd arrived at Mercy with a reputation for turning financially struggling hospitals into efficient, profitable institutions. What the board failed to mention was her methodology, cutting corners, standardizing care to the point of rigidity, and ruthlessly eliminating anyone who challenged her vision. I've reviewed Mrs. Williams' case, she began, finally meeting my eyes. You directly contravened established protocols. The patient presented with clear signs of pulmonary embolism. I explained calmly. The pneumonia diagnosis was incorrect. That's not for you to decide. We implemented these protocols based on extensive data analysis. They represent the most cost-effective approach for treating the most common conditions. With respect, Dr. Reynolds, medicine isn't about treating the most common conditions. It's about treating individual patients. Her eyes narrowed. Interesting perspective. Perhaps more suited to a boutique private practice than a hospital serving predominantly Medicare and Medicaid patients. The implication was clear. Poor patients didn't deserve individualized care. Every patient deserves our best judgment, I countered, feeling heat rise in my face. Mrs. Williams would have died. You don't know that, she dismissed with a wave. What I do know is that you ordered an unnecessary CT scan costing thousands of dollars and administered expensive thrombolytics when more conservative management was indicated by protocol. Conservative management would have killed her. Reynolds stood slowly, placing both palms on her immaculate desk. Dr. Chen, This is your third protocol violation this month. You ordered advanced cardiac enzymes for the homeless man last week, and you admitted the uninsured diabetic patient instead of discharging him as the algorithm recommended. Both medically necessary decisions, I said firmly. Both expensive departures from approved guidelines. She straightened a pen on her desk. Mercy Hospital cannot afford physicians who believe they know better than evidence-based protocols. Those protocols prioritize cost over care, I argued, struggling to keep my voice low. They're designed for financial outcomes, not patient outcomes. Dr. Reynolds' expression hardened. That's where you're fundamentally mistaken, Dr. Chen. Healthcare is a business. Efficient resource allocation saves more lives in the aggregate than heroic interventions for individual patients. That's not why I became a doctor. Perhaps that's the problem. She opened a folder on her desk. Your contract includes adherence to hospital protocols as a condition of employment. You've violated that condition repeatedly. My stomach tightened as I realized where this was heading. Are you seriously suggesting firing me for saving a patient's life? Dr. Reynolds slammed her fist on the desk, her carefully maintained composure finally cracking. You're fired, Dr. Chen. No one questions my protocols. Not you, not anyone. You have 30 minutes to clear out your locker. Security will escort you from the premises. The next half hour passed in a blur. Colleagues watched in shocked silence as I emptied my locker under the watchful eye of Dave, the security guard who looked more embarrassed than intimidating. A few brave nurses whispered promises to call later, while most doctors averted their eyes, afraid of being associated with the fallen. Dr. Patel, a young resident I'd mentored, risked approaching as I headed for the exit. This isn't right, he muttered. Everyone knows you're the best physician in this hospital. Make sure someone follows up on Mrs. Williams in room 12, I replied. She'll need careful monitoring for the next 48 hours. Outside, rain pounded the pavement as I stood under the ambulance bay overhang. The contents of 6 years of hospital work stuffed into a single cardboard box. My mind raced through options. I had savings, could probably find locum tenens work while searching for a permanent position. But the shock of being fired for providing good medical care still hadn't fully registered. My phone rang, displaying an unfamiliar Washington, D.C. area code. Probably a recruiter, I thought, already circling like vultures after hearing about my sudden availability. Hospital gossip traveled at light speed. Dr. Chen speaking. Doctor, this is Senator James Calloway. I almost dropped the phone. Senator Calloway was not just any senator. He chaired multiple influential committees and was a leading voice in healthcare policy reform. Yes, Senator. What can I do for you? My mother, Eleanor Williams, called me from her hospital room 30 minutes ago. She says you saved her life by ignoring hospital policy. Eleanor Williams, Mrs. Williams. The connection clicked instantly. Senator Calloway, I had no idea. My mother doesn't trade on my position, doctor. She's proudly independent. But she described what happened in detail, how you diagnosed her condition when others had missed it, and how you were willing to go against hospital protocols to provide proper treatment. I leaned against a concrete pillar, suddenly aware of how exhausted I felt. I just did what any good doctor would do. Apparently not, since she reports the initial physician simply followed a protocol without considering her specific symptoms. There was a pause. Are you aware that I'm heading the Senate Healthcare Oversight Committee that begins hearings next week? I wasn't. No. Our first investigation concerns hospitals implementing cost-cutting measures that potentially compromise patient care. Standardized protocols that override physician judgment are high on our list of concerns. Rain continued to fall as I processed his words. Senator, are you saying? I'm saying Mercy Hospital just became our primary case study. And I believe the committee would benefit greatly from your testimony regarding these protocols and your experience today. 20 minutes later, I sat in my car, still parked in the doctor's lot, making notes about everything I'd observed since Dr. Reynolds had implemented her system. The inappropriate discharges, the delayed diagnosis, the complications that resulted from cookie-cutter medicine. All the incidents I'd documented but had been too afraid to report for fear of retaliation. That fear had been justified. I'd lost my job anyway. But now I had something I hadn't had before, a platform. My phone buzzed with a text from Nurse Garcia. Dr. R is freaking out. Hospital attorney and CEO just rushed to her office. Something about a senator's mother? I smiled for the first time since being fired. Then another text arrived, this one from Dr. Patel. Board chairman just showed up. Rumor is Reynolds falsified protocol outcomes data to get her bonus. Multiple whistleblowers coming forward now that they know you're testifying to Senate committee. Underscore 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 underscore. The Senate hearing room buzzed with tension 1 week later. Camera crews jostled for position as I took my seat at the witness table, adjusting the microphone nervously. Across the room, Dr. Reynolds sat with Mercy Hospital's legal team, her expression glacial. Senator Callaway gavelled the session to order. This committee is investigating potentially dangerous cost-cutting measures in American hospitals, specifically the implementation of rigid treatment protocols that override physician judgment and potentially endanger patients. He turned to me. Dr. Chen, please describe your experience at Mercy Hospital under Dr. Reynolds' administration. For the next hour, I detailed everything: the algorithms that prioritize financial metrics over individual patient needs, the penalties for physicians who deviated from protocols regardless of medical necessity, the culture of fear that prevented staff from speaking up. And you were terminated specifically for treating my mother's pulmonary embolism rather than continuing with an incorrect pneumonia protocol. Senator Callaway asked. Yes, Senator. Dr. Reynolds explicitly stated that my termination was due to protocol violations, despite the fact that following protocol would likely have resulted in your mother's death. The room erupted in murmurs. Dr. Reynolds leaned toward her attorney, whispering furiously. Dr. Reynolds, Senator Callaway continued, your hospital has reported a 15% reduction in treatment costs since implementing these protocols. Can you explain how these savings were achieved without compromising care? Reynolds approached the microphone with practiced confidence. Senator, our protocols are evidence-based and represent best practices for the most common presentations. The savings come from reducing unnecessary tests and treatments while maintaining quality outcomes. Interesting, Senator Callaway replied, because this committee has reviewed Mercy Hospital's outcome data, and we found significant discrepancies between the reported results and actual patient outcomes. He held up a folder. This contains documented cases of complications, readmissions, and yes, deaths that occurred after patients were treated according to your protocols. Complications that were systematically excluded from your outcomes reporting. The color drained from Reynolds' face. Furthermore, the senator continued, we have testimony from multiple Mercy Hospital staff members indicating they were instructed to modify records to improve apparent outcomes. Would you care to address these allegations, Dr. Reynolds? The hearing continued for 3 more days, expanding beyond Mercy Hospital to examine similar practices nationwide. Physicians, nurses, and patients from dozens of institutions came forward with stories that echoed my experience. Medicine reduced to algorithms, care sacrificed for costs, and whistleblowers silenced. 1 month later, I stood outside Mercy Hospital watching workers remove the sign bearing Dr. Reynolds' name from the medical director's parking space. The board had terminated her contract after a unanimous vote, citing ethical violations and conduct unbecoming a physician. The FBI had opened an investigation into potential fraud charges related to the falsified outcome data. Dr. Chen. I turned to see Mrs. Williams, Senator Callaway's mother, approaching with her walker, accompanied by Nurse Garcia. I hear you're returning as Chief of Emergency Medicine, Mrs. Williams said with a smile. My son will be pleased. The board was quite persuasive, I admitted, especially after the Senate committee recommended a complete overhaul of Mercy's administration. And the protocols? Nurse Garcia asked. Being rewritten by a committee of practicing physicians, with emphasis on clinical judgment and individual patient needs. I smiled. Cost efficiency is still important, but not at the expense of proper care. Mrs. Williams patted my arm. You know, when they admitted me that day, I tried to tell the first doctor something wasn't right, that this felt different from pneumonia. He didn't listen, but you did. Sometimes listening is the most important diagnostic tool, I replied. As we walked toward the hospital entrance, I noticed the administration wing undergoing renovation, the former medical director's expansive office being converted back into a staff lounge and education center. Dr. Patel met us in the lobby, now wearing the confident expression of a physician who no longer feared retribution for doing the right thing. The new protocols just came through, he announced. They include a specific override provision for physician judgment. Good, I said. Because medicine isn't about following algorithms. It's about caring for people. Mrs. Williams smiled knowingly. Sometimes the people you care for might just care back in unexpected ways. As we entered the hospital together, I reflected on the strange path that had led me from being fired in disgrace to returning as a department chief. I hadn't known Mrs. Williams was a senator's mother. I'd simply treated her as I would any patient, with attention to her specific needs, rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. In the end, that was the most powerful testimony I could have given. That good medicine means treating each patient as an individual, not a data point in an algorithm. And sometimes doing the right thing, even when it costs you everything, finds a way to make things right again.